Hello, it's ASCII here for Nerf TV, taking you through our very first Hearthstone guide. We're going to be looking at a Rogue starter deck. This deck's designed to rush down your opponent with minions and direct damage, while also having some really great removal to keep your enemy from getting any control on the board at all. It's got no cards from packs in it, so you can expect to have all these cards unlocked within an hour or two of playing the game. All you've got to do is level your rogue to level 10, which takes hardly any time at all. There's plenty of room for additions and changes, and I'll go into those a little bit later. I still play a deck that's very similar to this. There's a couple changes I've made to it, and I'll talk about those, and a couple I want to make to it in the future, or that you could make to it. So we'll go through all that stuff a little bit later on, but first of all we'll take a look at what's actually in the deck itself. So first up we've got Backstab. This deals 2 damage to an undamaged minion for 0 cost. A really great card. Early game it's fantastic removal and you still get your full turn of mana out, so you can really use this very effectively in the early game. And later game it can be used to sort of whittle down the starting HP of a taunt or something like that, so you can then finish it off at less cost to your minions on the board. A really great must have card. Next up, Sinister Strikes. So this one deals 3 damage to an enemy hero. How you use this card is what makes it important. So basically you're going to be using Sinister Strike when there's nothing else you can do. So say it's turn 1 and you've only got 1 mana to spend, you've got nothing else you can do that turn, Sinister Strike's great. Say it's turn 5 and you've already spent 4 mana on getting a minion out, so you've still got 1 mana left, Sinister Strike is great then. But just don't use it when you've got other options. It's just a way to get a little bit more damage out of each turn. We've got 2 of those in the deck, and we've also got 2 of the backstabs. Next up we've got 2 Elven Archers. This card is not required. There is some great synergy though when you start to mix up the cards a little bit later on, when you've unlocked a few more cards. So basically you get 1/1 on the board for 1 cost, and it also deals 1 damage. So you could use this to ping the enemy hero, but that's not really worth it. You could use it to ping off a Divine Shield or something like that, and that is definitely worth it. You can use it for early game removal of something that's only got 1 HP, so say they put a charge minion out on the board that's only got 1 hit point, you can quickly take it out. But you can also use it to trigger an enraged creature on your own team. Now we don't have any enraged creatures in this basic deck, but I will talk a little bit about them later, and as you unlock them later on they can become really strong, and that's a great way to trigger it with the Elven Archer. So next up we've got Shiv. This deals 1 damage and draws a card. Again you can use it in a similar way to the Elven Archer. I do believe you can attack with your Shiv anyway, but if not, you can still actually just hit an enemy creature and kill them, and you get a card out of it. Not a required card again. You're able to just ping off early game creatures quite quickly and easily, and you're still going to keep a good number of cards in your hand, so you're not giving up too many options for it. Having lots of options open is definitely an important part of this deck. A lot of the cards have a lot more uses than just generally attacking. Next up, the Bluegill Warrior. This is a 2/1 with charge, so early game removal, 2 damage, you can just pull it on the board and kill something with it. Very effective for that. Or you can use it to attack the enemy hero. There's a number of different options you can have with this card. I tend to use it for just removing a creature early on, or saving it till a little bit later to finish a creature off. In a way they don't really expect. It's not really a predicted card. Basically you're just looking at 2 damage on the board for 2 mana. Next up, Defias Ringleader. Probably one of the most powerful cards in this deck. It's been nerfed already. I wouldn't even be surprised if it gets nerfed again. It's still really strong. Definitely not as strong as it was, but basically rogues have a setup on them where they can combo. So if you've already played a card that turn, certain cards you have also have a combo effect. So if you play 1 card and then combo it with a combo card, it has an extra effect. And in the case of Defias Ringleader, it will summon a 2/1 bandit. So you're going to have 4 damage out on the board for 2 cost. Really strong. The really important thing here is though that the coin, so if you're going in the second turn you get what's called a coin card, and you can play that to get an extra mana on 1 turn. So say it's turn 1 and you play the coin, you've now got 2 mana, you play the Defias Ringleader, it's a combo, so you're going to summon up the extra bandit, so now you've got 4 damage on the board on turn 1. Seriously strong, very hard for the enemy to counter. There are definitely ways they can do it. I've seen it done a number of times and players take it out quite quickly and easily, but most of the time it's not easy, and this is a really powerful card, so we've got 2 of those in the deck. You can also combo it obviously a little bit later on, say on turn 3 you could Sinister Strike and then Defias Ringleader or something like that, and then you get it out nice and quickly. Next up, Novice Engineer. So this is a card that you can either take or leave, honestly. It's in the deck at the moment because it's just another way to get yourself a creature out in the field early on, and it gets you a card draw, so you're still keeping a good number of cards in your hand. It's very much the same as Shiv, it's just the minion version of it. That's basically all that card is doing. Next up is the Fan of Knives. This deals 1 damage to all enemy minions and you draw a card. Again, you're getting that card draw when you play the card, so you're keeping all those options in your hand. 1 damage to all enemy minions does not sound a lot, however this makes a really good counter against things like Murloc rushdown decks or other forms of rushdown deck. If they're sending a lot of small minions towards you, it can be a little bit difficult to deal with, but the Fan of Knives makes it quite simple. You're just going to blow them all away very quickly. Fantastic card there, and we've got 2 of those in the deck as well. Next up, the Raid Leader. Your other minions have +1 attack, so you don't really want to use him by himself. He's pretty much useless. He's a 2/2 for free cost. Not great value, but if you've got a number of other minions on the field, so say you've got the Defias Ringleader and the Bandit out on the field, and maybe even something else, and then you played the Raid Leader, you've suddenly got a massive amount of damage that you can be able to dish out that turn. You can also use it to buff something else up, so say it's turn 5 and you need to deal 2 damage to get an enemy creature, 3 damage, sorry, to get an enemy creature off the board. You could play the Raid Leader in combination with the Bluegill Warrior, then he's suddenly a free one, and he's able to quickly take it out for only 2 costs. So you're only using a 2 cost card, but you're killing the enemy creature quite quickly and easily. So there's a number of ways that can be used to give yourself some other options for removal. You can also obviously use it with the later game cards as well. Shattered Sun Cleric. So I generally use this card as a way to buff a creature and allow it to kill something but also survive, so it trades very well. So let's use the Bluegill Warrior again as an example. Say you're going to fight something that only does, say you're going to want to kill a Novice Engineer, for example, with your Bluegill Warrior. So you've already got the damage and the health, but you're going to trade for it. That's not a great trade. I mean, you're just going to trade directly. Novice Engineer's already used its battle cry. It's not a powerful card at all. But if you buff it up with the Shattered Sun Cleric, you're suddenly a 3/2, so you're going to be able to kill that and survive to play another turn out of it. So that gets a lot more value out of your cards by playing that one there. The +1 damage is useful for just upping a creature enough to kill off something, and the +1 health gets it so you can often survive attacks. It can also be used in combination with the next card, the Wolf Rider, for the exact same way, to make the Wolf Rider even more powerful so it survives a bit longer. Wolf Rider is a great card, again just using it in the same way as the Bluegill Warrior for either removal or some quick instant damage. A fairly solid card. Dark Iron Dwarf. So this gives +2 attack to one of your minions. Really great value, this card. It's a 4/4 for 4, and it's going to give +2 attack, so you're getting 10 stats out on the board for only 4 costs, so really effective, I reckon. Really good value. Again, you could use it to buff up the Wolf Rider, suddenly that's a 5/1, massive amount of damage. So we spoke earlier about enraged creatures as well, so you're buffing up an enraged creature, it's going to do even more, and there is actually one particular enraged creature which I'll be recommending a little bit later on, which also has Wind Fury, so they can attack twice. So say you're buffing that up with this, suddenly you're dishing out 4 extra damage per turn. Seriously powerful card, definitely one I recommend, and we've got 2 of those in the deck. 2 Assassin's Blades. Assassin's Blade is a weapon, so your hero character will equip it. You'll get 4 attacks with this weapon for 3 damage each attack. Now, with this deck, you don't want to be too afraid of actually just burning your health, killing creatures off on the field. You want to keep as much ball control as possible. You're never going to have a huge amount. You're mainly going to be sort of around the 3-4 minion mark, maybe even 2 or 3, but they're not going to have anything as much as possible. So that's where you're getting this ball control, is they're just going to have nothing out hardly ever. And the Assassin's Blade really helps you to do that. Don't be afraid to burn your HP, but you can also just go straight for the gullet and go for the enemy hero with it. Assassinate destroys an enemy minion regardless of what it's got on it. Really powerful card. If they play some sort of legendary or a tough taunt or anything that's very difficult for you to get through normally, you can assassinate it, you keep all your creatures on the field, you haven't had to trade anything, and suddenly you can dish out a load of damage to them as well. Stormpike Commando. This is a card you can either take or leave. It's something I would trade out probably when you unlock some cards later on. Deal 2 damage, it's only a 4/2, so it's very easy for the enemy to remove, especially around turn 5 or more. It's very easy for them to take out. The damage is reasonable, and you're getting that early damage off, but the main reason you want this is just for picking something off the board, just making one of your other characters go further. So say you need to kill something that's got too much HP for you to kill. You have to try 3 creatures on the board to kill 1 creature of theirs, their taunt or something. You could play the Stormpike Commando, deal 2 damage, and then maybe you've only got to trade 1 or 2 creatures to kill it off. So that works out quite well for that kind of thing, but I would recommend probably trading this out at a later date. Reckless Rocketeer as the final one, a charge 5/2, again very easy to get rid of, but you're just going to get 5 damage on that turn. Great for removing a creature from the board or just getting that last bit of damage to finish an enemy off. So that is the basic deck itself. Now we're going to take a quick look at what we can do to mix it up a little bit. So if we switch into crafting mode, we can show you some of the cards that we've yet to unlock that will be useful in this deck. So Cold Blood, give a minion +2 attack, or if you've comboed it, +4 attack. A great way to buff up one of your creatures. You can do it very early game, you can get some serious damage out of that card. Definitely something I would recommend. Betrayal, this is touch and go. There have been moments I wish I had it, but generally when you're in that situation you're already in a really bad way anyway, and it's probably not going to help. It basically takes a minion's damage and deals that to the minions on either side of it, so you can potentially take out 2 minions with this and leave 1 alive. The downside is that if they manage to get 3 minions out on the board that are worth using Betrayal on, you're already in a bad situation and you've probably got other ways of getting rid of it. If you haven't got other ways of getting rid of it, you're in trouble anyway, you're probably not going to save you. Take it if you like, but I wouldn't recommend it. Eviscerate is a card I would recommend, however. This deals 2 damage normally or 4 if you combo it. A solid piece of single target removal, which is more commonly going to be needed in this game. The way this deck works is you're going to be hitting generally just a single target each turn. You're going to be wiping 1 thing that they played on the board, maybe 2 tops. And then you're going to be going for them, and this Eviscerate works really well with that. Next up, Head Crack is a fairly solid card as well. This deals 2 damage to the enemy hero, and if you've comboed it, it returns it to your hand so you can use it again next turn. A good way to get some steady standard damage each turn in the later game. You can use it quite repetitively. Abusive Sergeant, this card definitely has some potential. You can buff one of your minions up by 2 attack for only that 1 turn. It only costs 1 mana, so you can play it quite early on or use it as a filler card or something like that. And yeah, it's a fairly reasonable card. I mean, you're going to be, if you're buffing up something that's already fairly strong or got charge, you can use it to take a minion out on the other team or whatever. There's a lot of ways you can use the Abusive Sergeant. It's not great because it's only a 2/1. It's probably going to die next turn, but you can generally get some fairly good value out of it straight away if you play it at the right time. We talked about Enrage earlier a few times. Armani Berserker is definitely a good Enraged option, but it's not great. It's 2 costs for a 2/3, so it's already fairly good, and it has Enraged +3 attacks. So while it's one of the Enraged cards I would recommend if you are going to swap something out, it's definitely not the best one, and we'll cover that in just a moment. The Direwolf Alpha is basically a weaker version of the Raid Leader. The Raid Leader applies +1 to all your minions, whereas the Direwolf Alpha does it to just the ones on either side of it. Seeing as you're not going to be playing huge numbers of minions each turn, the Direwolf Alpha can be useful, but it's definitely not a must-have. It's another option if you feel that would help out in your deck. Nothing on that page and nothing on that page. I mean, there are certainly options. You can go for things like the Acolyte of Pain and stuff like that to get yourself some more card draw, or even the Pint-Sized Summoner to get some more minions out in the field, but they're just not necessarily a required thing. There are definitely some cards that have got very good value. Jungle Panther, for example, is a good way to get 4 damage. Because it's stealthed, you're pretty much guaranteed to get that damage out on the next turn and that kind of thing, but generally your opponent's not got any way of killing your creatures anyway, because you wipe what he's got off the board each turn. Now, talking of enraged creatures earlier, the Raging Morgan is probably my favourite. It enrages and gives it Wind Fury and +1 attack. So basically Wind Fury allows it to attack twice. You get 1+ attack, so you're going to be able to deal 8 damage per turn. Now, if you trigger this yourself using your Elven Archer, you're only going to be down to 2 HP. And then you can buff it up. So if you've got, say, the Raid Leader, you're suddenly be dealing 10 damage per turn. If you've got, say you're able to buff it up with a +2 attack from the dwarf, you're going to be dealing even more damage. You can deal astronomical amounts of damage very early on with this card. You can get some serious value out of it. There's definitely a lot of good ways to use it. I mean, say for example, if you had the what was the one we covered earlier, Cold Blood, if you had that card, you could deal some massive damage with the Raging Worgen and really hurt your opponent very early on, as you can get that card out very quickly. There are some other options. Cult Master again is something that can be fairly good. You've got Leroy Jenkins down here. If you get legendary, he can deal some pretty quick damage before dying, pretty much guaranteed the next turn. There are options. You also haven't got any silence in the deck, which can be a weakness, but generally you've got so much removal just via direct damage, you don't need the silence, you don't have to worry about that too much. There are some cards it will be worth silencing and that can be a problem, but it's not a big deal. So yeah, that is basically our very simple, very quick and very early to unlock Rogue Rushdown deck. Get you started in the game and get you going very quickly. I hope you enjoyed this guide. We'll have some more content coming out for Hearthstone in the future. We've got plenty of other content coming out for many other great titles. Please subscribe if you are interested in seeing more stuff like this, and let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.